Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Midcard Mess podcast. I am your host, not one, not two, but all three faces of Jamal, and this is the championship history of World Heavyweight Wrestling Champions of all time. This is going to be part one of probably 20 or so different championships, all iterated from becoming the world champion. So, what I mean by that is like everybody knows that each promotion has a world champion, whether it's in MLW or WWE, AEW, CEW in Iowa, like WSW in Australia. It doesn't matter. Every promotion that exists in pro wrestling as of concurrent today has derived from a or has a world heavyweight wrestling champion. So I thought it would be interesting to divulge some of that information and just pretty see what like all the different championships looked like back in the day. What was the first who was the first very first champion and stuff like that. So it's been kind of like a heck of a ride going through the history of this. So like I said, it's the first part of a 20-part series. So yeah, like this dates back all the way to 1905 to now. So think about that, from 1905 to 2024, almost 2025. That's a long freaking time. So, all right, with that being said, let's get right on into it. So, as I said from the beginning of the outset, the very first recognized pro wrestling world heavyweight championship was created in 1905 to basically identify who was the best wrestler in the world at that time. It was called the World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. So that's the WHWC. That's what it was basically called. But the World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. Um, yeah, like it was a belt used to represent the early 20th century of pro wrestlers. Like we're talking a subsequent legacy of champions. Like we got a whole bunch of people from George Hackenschmitt to some unknown people like Tom Jenkins and Edward Carpenter, and like it's a lot. It's it's so many different great legends on here. Ed Lewis, becoming a four-time heavyweight champion in his own right. But I'm gonna get into the reigns and the history a little later. But yeah, like so, basically, like the the World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship was established in May 4th, 1905. That's really kind of crazy when you think about it. So, yeah, so like May 4th, 1905, the World Championship was created. And basically, it was disputed among different various promotions all across the world. Um, Everything from the National Wrestling Alliance to what would become New Japan Pro Wrestling, to All Japan Pro Wrestling and everything like that. These are like this dates all the way back to then. It was basically defended all over the world, um, through like France and Germany, St. Petersburg, Russia. They went through Berlin and Elphberg and Hamburg, Paris, Liverpool, like London. Everybody and their mother was like watching wrestling at this time. So um, the first one to ever become a or the world champion is one George Hackenschmitt. For those that don't know, George Hackenschmidt's contributions to wrestling is numerous, and like his name lives on forever because he was literally the first world champion ever. So George Hackenschmitt won the first world championship tournament to become the world champion. This was in America that he did this, but like he's wrestled in other places before. So like and several other tournaments, such as the tournament in France, in Paris. He wrestled in Germany and Hamburg and Ethelbert and Berlin. He also won a European Greco-Roman Wrestling Heavyweight Championship from Tom Cannon in 1902 in Liverpool, England. So, like, he won the recognition of becoming the World Wrestling Heavyweight Champion on January 30th in London, England by defeating Ahmed Morali. And Hackenschmitt defeated American heavyweight champion Tom Jenkins on May 4th in 1905 in New York City to become the first recognized world champion in North America. Um, Hackenschmitt had defended it for quite a while from 1905 all the way to 1908. Um, Basically, he was the best in the world at that time. Frank Gotch ended up winning the title from Hackenschmitt on April 3rd, 1908, where he held the title for about like 5 years until his retirement in 1913. He was the sixth longest reigning world heavyweight champion in history behind the late great Bruno Sammartino, Jim Londos, Luthez, and Vern Gagne, all who held the world titles for over like 7 years. Like back then, being the world champion meant you were the best in the world, and it took years for somebody to beat you. So to put that in perspective, um, yeah, like the Roman Reigns title run is like he's number three when it comes to like you know he's number three when it comes to longest reigning world championship reigns type deals. The only people that's ahead of him is Jim Landis and fucking Bruno Sammartino. So you know what I'm saying. Bob Backlund is also in the mix when he held the title for like 6 years in a row. And obviously, like we know the WWE history with Bruno Sammartino and stuff like that. And this is the iteration of the first World Heavyweight Championship. Like this is before WWF. This is before Vince McMahon Senior and all this other stuff. So like this is like the title of titles, the King of Kings, the Champion of Champions. Um, Joe Stretcher defeated American heavyweight champion Charlie Cutler to become the first widely recognized world champion after the retirement of Frank Gotch. So Joe Stretcher was the next in line after Frank Gotch. He was the next one up. After Joe Stretcher lost the title to Johan Olin by countout, which you could lose the title by countout back in the day, Olin started his own line with both iterations of the title being defended. Ed Lewis defeated Olin, while Earl Caddick defeated Stretcher. Lewis and Waldeck Zbyszko, a name that I know a lot of people know from the Zbyszko wrestling family, traded the title back and multiple occasions in 1917 and 1919. So between that time, they were just doing back and forth. They were Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair in that aspect, in that vein, just trading the title back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Making Zbyszko a three-time unofficial champion. The reason why it's unofficial because there was two iterations of the title being defended at the same time. I believe that Stretcher's title was the legit one, and then Ed Lewis's title was like the finicky one. Earl Caddick held the title for a period of 23 to 1,227 days, depending on which iteration of the title is deemed official. So Joe Stretcher was able to defeat both not only Waldeck Zbyszko, but also Earl Caddick, and he became the unified world heavyweight wrestling champion of the world in 1920. By April 15th, 1925, Stanislas Zbyszko, I'm sorry, I'm kind of butchering his name, but it's like Stanislas Zbyszko defeated the previous champion, who happened to be Wayne Munn, to win the championship. Munn continued to be recognized as the world champion in Michigan and Illinois because they didn't recognize that Stannis had won the title from Munn during that time. So Ed Lewis defeated Wayne Munn in February 1928 in Michigan City, Indiana, for the Michigan Illinois World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship version. So he basically won the title that they tried to make the faux, like the faux title, the interim championship, if you will. Joe Stretcher then defeated Zbyszko to become the widely recognized champion. The dispute ended when Lewis defeated Stretcher on when Ed Lewis again winning the title for like the third time in on February 21st, 1928. Gus Sonnensberg won the title from Lewis on January 4th, 1929, but the recognition of becoming world champion by the wrestling section of the National Boxing Association was withdrawn from Sonnenberg for failing to meet real title contenders. So Gus Sonnensberg, when he won the world title, instead of wrestling like big names like Ed Lewis or Zbyszko or Joe Stretcher, he was wrestling a bunch of bums and basically winning the title, beating bums over and over and over and over again. So Lewis won the title again in April 13th, 1931, where he also won the AWA World Heavyweight Championship in Boston, but he lost that title due to disqualification to Henry Delange and in Canada. However, Lewis was still recognized as the World Wrestling Heavyweight Champion of Illinois. When Lewis defeated Waldek Zbyszko, who widely was considered the world champion at the time, on November 2nd, 1931 in Chicago, Illinois, and in the dispute, Lewis then continued winning New York State Athletic Commission World Heavyweight Championships by defeating Jack Sherry on October 10th, 1932 for the vacant title, but lost it to Jim Browning shortly after. Daniel O'Mahony won the title from Lewis on July 30th, 1935. O'Mahony defeated Landis to win the New York State Athletic Commission World title, which O'Mahony also won the AWA World title by defeating Ed Don George for the AWA title in Boston, Massachusetts, to become the undisputed World Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. So, there's just a lot of everybody's just divulging. I want to be world champion, or I have a world championship in this. You can see where the territories are coming into play, even way back in the 30s. So on March 2nd, 1936, Dick Shikat, it's Shikat. Dick Shikat beat O'Mahony in New York, but the AWA continued to recognize O'Mahony as the champion, splintering the undisputed nature of the title once again. So, to put that in perspective, to modernize perspective, Roman wins not only the WWE but the Universal Champion. They recognize the Universal Champion and they dub the WWE Championship, but the WWE Championship is defended on Raw, and then the Universal Champion defended on SmackDown at that time. Like, that's just something, like, just to put in perspective when it comes to the World Heavyweight Championship. So, this is the undisputed title was up in the air yet again until one Alibaba. Yes, there is a wrestler out there who won the world title whose name was Alibaba. So don't jack me, don't come for me. Like, the dude's name was Alibaba. Alibaba won the title on April 25th, 1936. 4 days later, it was announced by the New York Times that Baba was not going to be recognized as the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion in the New York State Athletic Commission due to, like, racist reasons, I want to say. But we know the vibes. However, it was announced that Baba and Shikat would face each other on May 5th, 1936 at the Garden for the title. Baba went on to win, thus being recognized as the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion of the world. Bronco Nagurski won the title on June 29, 1937. Nagurski was recognized as the undisputed World Wrestling Heavyweight Champion of the world by Ring Magazine, the same Ring Magazine that has all the boxing legends and stuff like that. So this is like the cover that Muhammad Ali and George Foreman and all those people were on, Mike Tyson and so on and so forth. Landis won the title again Landis won the title again on November 18th, 1938, and retired as the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion on January 28th, 1946. Landis wrestled his last match on this date by defeating Lord Albert Mills. Luthez was the last one to become the final world heavyweight champion, and as you know, Luthez is a legend in himself. He first won the title in May 21st, 1952, unifying three different championships: the undisputed world heavyweight wrestling champion, the National Wrestling Alliance heavyweight champion, and the National Wrestling Alliance world champion, which was like the intercontinental title to put in perspective. So he was like a triple crown champion at that time. He won the title in Las Vegas, and he also unified the Las Vegas Olympic Auditorium World Heavyweight Championship on that same vein, and on May 21st, 1952, by defeating Baron Michel Leon. The Whipper Billy Watson won the title by countout in 1956 by defeating Luthez. Luthez won the title back from Watson on November 9th, 1956, when Edward Carpenter defeated Luthez by disqualification in Chicago, Illinois. Once again, Luthez could not continue the match due to a back injury. So the NWA's rules that the title could not change hands on a disqualification. So Carpenter was awarded the NWA title back to Thez. And then Carpenter was still recognized as the World Heavyweight Champion in Omaha, Nebraska and Boston, Massachusetts, but then later was recognized as the World Heavyweight Champion by Worldwide Wrestling Associates in Los Angeles, California. This ended the last time that the World Heavyweight Championship was unified, and the date never been fully unified again. The Omaha version of the World Championship was later unified with the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. Luthez defeated Carpenter in a rematch by disqualification in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, for the title. In 1957, the title was unofficially retired, and its lineage continued onto the National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Championship, which is now known as the 10 pounds of gold. So, with that being said, that is the history of the very first World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. So now that we've covered the history of the first iteration of the World Championship, we're going to break down its lineage through. There's a cutoff. Basically the cutoff is when everybody decided to make their own belts. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the different reigns that happened in the very first original World Heavyweight Championship. So there were 28 different reigns and 3 vacancies when it pertains to the first recognized World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. George Hackenschmitt, as I mentioned before, was the very first one to win, and he won by defeating Tom Jenkins in May 4th, 1905 in New York City. Then the championship remained active for the next 51 years, with the last recognized reign being November 9th, 1956. Ed Lewis holds the record for the most reigns as the original World Wrestling Heavyweight Champion with 4 different reigns. Lewis also holds the record for the most combined days as the champion with 3,073 days. With Jim Landis holds the longest reign at 2,628 days, and Stanley Zbyszko holds the record for the shortest reign at 45 days, and is also the oldest world champion by winning the title at 46 years old. So it's never too late, guys. If you're an aspiring pro wrestler, please. 46 years old was when Stannis Zbyszko won the world championship. 15 days, while Joe Stretcher is the youngest champion, winning it at 22 years old, and held the title for 103 days. The final reign was disputed with Luthez and Edward Carpenter, and all the matches were held at different house shows. Now, as I mentioned before, this is going to be the first in the 20-part series. The championship at this time has splintered off into 7 different iterations of world championships recognized, and then also obviously, uh, it's only by a backer where they splintered it off, and then they also have other world titles such as the CMLL AAA Championship, the Triple Crown Championship in Japan, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in Japan. But some of the more famous splintered off championships include the original, which then NWA, WWE, WCW, and AWA have all continued the lineage. So it goes as follows. So the World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship, the original one, and then it reigns partially merged with the National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Championship, which I'll be describing on a later date. Splintered from the NWA World Heavyweight Championship was 3 different titles, which was the WWF Championship, which then became the WWE Championship, and you know, all the way to the president of the Universal and the world and all that other stuff. When it comes down to the middle, you'll have the WCW World Championship. So it was the NWA World Heavyweight Championship to WCW Heavyweight Championship to the WCW Championship to the World Heavyweight Championship when it was unified to become the Undisputed Championship, and then they had the World Heavyweight Championship in WWE, which then merged back to the WWE Championship today, as we know. And then they also had the AWA World Heavyweight Championship, all which will be discussed on a later date at a later time. So, with that, that is the end of part 1. Be on the lookout for more lineage of the World Heavyweight Championships. I might have other guests on the show depending on if anybody wants to, do a nice little collab and stuff like that. Depending on if they want to talk about their favorite World Championship, or I'll just do it by myself. It's no big deal. I've been really in a rut, and I would like to thank all the people that reached out to me that basically got me back on track. You know what I'm saying? I'm still, supporting everything. I want to take this time to shout out some of the people that, are doing big boy and big girl things out there. Shout out to the sharpshooters, like, Manny, Marcus, Eric, like all those guys at the sharpshooters. You guys do wonderful things. Keep doing what you do every day, because, you guys are doing really good things. I can't wait to, I'm glad that I was a part of that, or I am a part of that, whatever have you. What I'm saying, I'm going to support you guys all the way through and through thick and thin. Also, I would also like to take a moment to recognize the Harold Hunter Foundation. Concurrently, I was in a mental health group program. They kind of closed it down a little bit because they couldn't keep the program running, but the Harold Hunter Foundation is basically a skateboarding outfit that runs out of New York City, representing Harold Hunter from movies like Kids, and one of the founders of Zoo York, and basically a skateboarding scene out here in New York City. So legends never die. Shout out to the Harold Hunter Foundation organization. And also, free plug over here, Force Focus, ran by uh, Jen Cruz and her family. I think it was her and her brother. They got Force Focus clothing line, Force Focus apparel. Go peep that out. And I also want to shout out my boy Sean Weathers. He's dropping some nice music out there. If you're into hip hop and R&B, definitely check out my boy Sean Weathers. That's SHON Weathers. And yeah, he's got a whole bunch of great music out there right now in concurrent in time. Also, another person that's doing music, my boy Ruben Word, Richie Rashad. He's also doing big boy things out there. So, all right, with that, that is the end of today's podcast. Go follow all of my platforms with the Midcard Mess. I believe I'm gonna be posting this on Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Hopefully, I could branch out, be able to branch that out, and yeah, man, just keep listening to the Midcard Mess podcast. Be on the lookout for more. I'll be getting back into a routine sooner than later, and I will talk to you guys on the next one. Peace.